Thank you so very, very much for paying attention to this very, very important race. And I'll talk to you about the campaign, about me, and about the issues that are of particular importance to you as you consider who you're going to vote for in this race. This race is about the future of our Supreme Court. It is about what kind of court it ought to be and the kind of justices we should be electing to the court. I alone, among the two candidates, have been to all 72 counties. That was as of the end of September, and so I've been to many of them, many, many times since. And I'm struck by people's shared hopes for the court. Everybody, you all know what the court ought to be. It ought to be a place where everybody gets a fair shake, where every justice approaches every case with an open mind, where the outcome of any case is not a foregone conclusion. In short, it should be a place where we can all be confident that justice is being done without fear or favor. And everywhere I go, this year especially, people are telling me they want all three branches of government to work for them. They want their local governments to be allowed to work for them, and they want the court to be the independent check and balance on the other two branches of government that it was designed to be. And that's why I'm running, because I'm unwilling to surrender the court to the partisan politics and the special interests that threaten to undermine its independence and integrity. And that's what distinguishes me from my opponent: independence, integrity, and experience. Now, with partisan politics come agendas, and those agendas, whether you agree with them or not, belong in the executive and legislative branches. But they shouldn't be bleeding over into our court. And with the massive expenditures of unregulated special interests that don't have to disclose their donors, comes the perception that justice is for sale. Every candidate will tell it, well, both candidates now in this race, will tell you that we will be independent and impartial when we get on the court. And the challenge for voters is to determine who will deliver on that promise. And you can tell who will deliver on that promise by how we got where we are. And I'll spend a little time to tell you how I got where I am. I was elected to the Court of Appeals in 2012. I have issued over 750 written appellate court decisions for everybody to see in the 3.5 years since on every area of law. And every decision by one of them was a unanimous decision by my panel of my colleagues. That's one skill that I will bring with me on the court. I know what it's like to work with colleagues to focus in on the decision the question that's being asked by the parties in order to reach a unanimous decision that will resolve the dispute and clearly tell everybody else what the law is. I am the presiding judge in my district. You may not know, the Court of Appeals has 16 judges statewide. And anyone who thinks there was an error in the circuit court has a right to appeal to the Court of Appeals. We have to take every appeal that comes to us, and we take about 3,000 cases statewide every year. We're a hard-working court. I am the presiding judge in my district, which sits in Madison, but we handle cases from all over the state. I don't always agree with my colleagues, but I have great respect for them, and I'm honored they chose me to be the presiding judge in my district. Before I was elected to the Court of Appeals, I served as an assistant attorney general at the Department of Justice for 23 years. I was hired by Attorney General Don Hanaway, who was a Republican. I aced the civil service exam, which we don't have anymore now in state government, and I served under 4 attorneys general from both political parties. I represented the interests of all of the people of Wisconsin in circuit courts around the state and argued many times in the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. Unlike my opponent, my record is there for everyone to see. You can go on CCAP, you can go on any case law database, and you will find the hundreds of decisions that I won and handled for the people of Wisconsin in circuit courts and in the Court of Appeals and in the Supreme Court. I, of course, apply the law as written because that's where it is. It's written, and that's where you start. And my opinions show that I apply the law fairly and thoughtfully in a principled and disciplined manner to answer the precise legal question that's asked by the parties. I respect the role of the court as an independent check and balance on the other two branches of government, and it's my duty to uphold the Constitution, which represents the will of the people and contains the fundamental principles that define our democracy, that do protect our individual rights and do promote a more equal society. I am building on the base of support that I got in 2011 when 750,000 people voted for me and we had the highest turnout ever in a Supreme Court race. And those, I'm endorsed by working people, community leaders, judges around the country, around the state. I'm endorsed by twice as many judges in Milwaukee as my opponent, and they're the ones who know her work the best. The Milwaukee County Lawyers Association, the Bar Association, just did a poll, and many bar associations do these polls, just asking their members whether the candidates for the different judicial offices are qualified or not qualified. And they polled their members for all of the judges running for Milwaukee County Circuit Court and for the Court of Appeals. And usually, they're always disgruntled people for candidates, and so you figure you get maybe 10% of the respondents find someone who's not qualified. 48% of the respondents found that Rebecca Bradley was not qualified. That's a very unusual result. One of the groups that endorses me, she will tell you, using an advertisement from Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, which is not the most trustworthy source, they spliced together some comments I made 5 years ago in 2011, where in different bits and pieces, the gist was, according to them, that I never said I was tough on crime. That wasn't part of my campaign. And in part, that's not so untrue. The Supreme Court, about a third of its cases are criminal, the rest are civil. And I'm against crime. I think everybody is. But I'm endorsed by the largest law enforcement association in Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. And I actually had 2 cases with them while I've been on the Court of Appeals. And in one I ruled for them, and in one I ruled against them. And I think that says it all. In every case, I follow the law. Rebecca Bradley was caught on tape talking about her friends to air ads for her, and this was at a time when coordination was not allowed. This was in 2013 when she ran after her first appointment to the Milwaukee County Circuit Court. And sure enough, Club for Growth put in $167,000 in a circuit court race in 2013 to help her win what was a very tight race. We know her friends put in almost $1 million of ads supporting her before the primary in this race, and they just put about $1 million worth of attack ads against me, plucking out of all my 750-something cases, 2 cases where they didn't like the outcome. Now, even Rebecca Bradley has said you set your personal feelings aside, especially in criminal cases where, you're not going to usually like the criminal defendant. But you have to set your personal feelings aside and apply the law. And that's what happened in these 2 cases. It was a unanimous decision in each case by the Court of Appeals. By following the law, that means that because the law is the way it is and we follow it, most of the time the Court of Appeals affirms a conviction and rejects the arguments of a criminal defendant. But every once in a while, there's an error at the circuit court level. After all, the Court of Appeals is the error-correcting court. And when we find an error that calls for appellate intervention, we follow the law and usually remand back to the circuit court for further proceedings to correct that error of law. And that's what happened in these 2 cases. These ads distort the whole judicial process, they misstate the law, and they shamelessly exploit the victims of the crimes. One of the ads was so inaccurate that even Fox News said it was inaccurate and misleading. And the group running the ad was contacted by the family of the defendant and the victim, and said, okay, we'll pull the ad because we care about the victim, but they only pulled the ad in Milwaukee and Madison markets. It ran throughout northern Wisconsin. So it's still running. So their concern about victims of crime is very shallow indeed. When I go around the state, I'm asking everyone to come together with me for independence and integrity, which are qualities that I've stood for my entire career, for a justice who is qualified to serve on our Supreme Court, and for a court that works as it should, as an independent check and balance on the other branches of government, and as a place where we can all be confident that justice is being done.